Hello, everybody. I'm back. Welcome to Thursday night. It just seems like, oh man, what was it? Maybe, I don't know, it seems like just a week ago we were here carrying on a good conversation, having a good old time. And it just seems like, boom, time has flown and here we are again. And it's right. It's only been a week, but it is Thursday night again. My Friday. Sorry, everybody that doesn't have a Thursday Friday or Friday Thursday, but maybe one day. You keep striving, keep working hard, swapping jobs. Maybe one day you'll find that 4-day work week, 10-hour a day, whip your butt out in the sun, sweating to no thing, no to no good, and then come home and have to push mow the yard because what, you broke 2 riding mowers? Man. Yep, 2 riding mowers. I don't know. Did I talk about this last week? My main riding mower, big old beastie, brr, 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 brr. Sounds like it's slinging metal string around inside the engine and then stops. No compression. 2 cylinders, no compression. No compression, no fire. No fire, no run. No good. No bueno, as they like to say. I don't like to say it, but I'll say it. So I'll break out the old standby. And if Garthog gets here, I have to tell him, break out the old granny mower. Granny mower's been around a couple of decades, but it's a craftsman. I don't know. Mowed a couple of times with it, a couple of weeks with it. Runs, gets hot, dies. Runs, gets hot, dies. Runs, gets hot. No more. No bueno. Freddie Owens. Well, well, well. Look what the cat drug in. Where you been? You been on vacation? Yeah. Like having a school, your summers off, like an old school teacher or something. I know. Hunting for reasons not to go out and do real work. It's like, oh, this is going on, I got to go to that. Or maybe you had some training you got to go to. That'd be cool. Anything to kill the summertime till the kids come back. Yeah, kids camp. Well, kids camp. Doing real work, that ain't so bad for a man of leisure like yourself. But I'm glad you're here. Thanks for coming by. You might be the only one, so I'm going to rely upon you heavily, heavily to fill in the chat. See, you just come around for a good time, and I'm going to put your butt to work. So I was telling my hope-to-be audience that I've killed 2 riding mowers in probably the last 3 weeks. And the last one I killed, it would run and it would get hot after, mowing a while. And so I put a new fuel filter on it that you could see through, and the gas would go out of the filter. I'm thinking, oh, yeah, probably got a clogged line or something. Well, the last time it stopped, I was just about finished mowing. I let it cool off a little bit. I tap on the filter because it seems to come back, I don't know what's going on. Maybe the line. Anyway, filter fills up again. I start cranking on it. It won't start. I thought, well, maybe it's just too hot, Push it over to the house, come back the next day, try to start it, and it's popping and cracking, backfiring out the carburetor. Done. My second one dead in like 3 weeks. And now I have to push mow my yard. Or yards. I got more than, not like at different houses. My house yard's broken up into different sections. So anywho, I was talking about that because I was whining about how hot it was when I was out there mowing today. But it's my Friday. You realize, you know that. tonight's show is just like many of my other shows. Was it a fuel pump? Well, see, mine, I took off the fuel filter. I mean, I put the fuel filter on, but I took off the air filter and looked down in it. And, you know, you can't see much in the lawnmower carburetor, but where the air filter sits, there's just a little bit, about this much, you can see where the air goes down through there. And you start out and it's dry. And I start cranking it, pull the choke on, and then you see gas fluttering around inside that little throat. And it would pop and crack, and sometimes it would shoot, you know, geyser gas out the carburetor. But it never would fire up. It never would start and run. And now it just goes and just spins. It doesn't do really anything. But my big mower, it made some kind of, it sounded like I picked up a piece of electric fence or a piece of wire, electrical wire in the blade, and it made this all kind of flappy noise. I was in some tall grass. I know. I couldn't really see what was going on. But anyway, it died. It wouldn't start up. I had to pull the stupid thing up the hill with my tractor. Next day, I go out there and try to fire it up. It just spins like a top. So I put a compression tester on it. No compression out of either cylinder. I don't know what happened to it. No idea. But tonight's show, like many of my other shows, it's just one of those wild ideas that gets spawned by multimedia, you know, Facebook or Instagram, or not really multimedia, but social media. That's the word, social media. So I've been seeing all these little things come up about, I think a lot of it's Reddit. Yeah, Reddit, where they talk about all kinds of stuff. All these things coming up about, well, I put these copper tubes in my flower garden, or I put my copper tubes in my bean garden, or I put around the tomatoes. And come to find out, it's one of these ideas, like some of my other topics on the show, that people are trying to harness, I mean, natural energies. Call it what you want. You know, auras, you know, electromagnetisms, all those, whatever those might be. And come to find out, it is Gemini, my newfound AI friend, calls it pseudoscience. And to me, magnetism was a pseudoscience back in the day. You see what I'm saying? How do you know what something truly is until it gets explored? Somebody makes a couple of big breakthroughs, or some peoples make some big breakthroughs, and the next thing you know, well, shoot, yeah, that's a science. Hey, let's study this, let's study that. Just like magnetism or gravity or protons, neutrons, you know, photoelectric stuff. I don't know, photosynthesis. Well, I guess what I'm saying is that right now it's a pseudoscience. 10 years, 2 years, who knows? They may make a breakthrough, and it's like, oh yeah, if you do this and this and this, it gathers this energy from the sun and this magnetism stuff, and it puts it into the ground, and the next thing you know, you've got 200-pound potatoes. I don't know. Anyway, so I thought I would talk about it tonight on the show, and that was a Gemini generated AI image of an electroculture, and that's what I believe it's been labeled as electroculture. And that probably includes lots of different things, not just I put this thing in the ground and it makes my flowers prettier or my tomatoes grow greener. And the best I can tell from reading up on it, it's like an antenna that you put into the ground. Now, the one that AI drew is eye-catching, and that's the way I used it. It was to get your attention. It's probably not, and I don't, maybe it is. I didn't really ask it to go and make me something that was representative of the true electroculture devices that people are putting in the ground. Because I think some of them are like as simple as, a grounding rod stuck only a few inches into the ground, maybe, 8 to 10 inches into the ground, with some type of other wires sticking out like an old scrawny pine tree. But they're copper. Something that really is supposed to be conducive to, electricity. Or, hey, there's Garthok. What's up? I wanted you to know, I told people before Freddie showed up, that if he showed up, I'd have to tell you, I think I finally, regrettably, have killed Granny's mower. I set it aside. I started using my main mower because it was rickety. And my main mower died. So I had to get Granny's mower back up out of, I'm going to say out of retirement, but out of the woods. And got it running, puttering around, mowing. It don't start anymore. Yep, I know. So I've been having to push mow my yards. It's still technically 1 yard, like a pie. It's still one pie, but the pie's in pieces. And a piece over here, and a piece over there, and a piece down next to their driveway, and a piece up front, and all that stuff. So I got to push it all. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. So back to electroculture. We're going to look at it right on the surface. We're not going to get deep down into the roots of it, as it were. But I'm just wondering why, and like I said, right now it's called a pseudoscience. It may be legit. It may be something that, like, I don't know, herbal tea helping you sleep at night or something, right? It's just one of those things where it just hasn't been fully discovered yet. So we'll look at electroculture, what all that encompasses. And I was trying to think of something else that was along those lines, and I thought of the dowsing rod. Because, that's, some people swear by them. I've actually seen a person that makes his living basically doing sewer lines and water lines and repairing breaks and doing all kinds of things underground with water, whether it's poopy water or drinkable water, whatever it might be. I actually saw him try to use a dowsing rod to pinpoint where water was coming from in a water pipe leak. I don't think it worked. It did not work as well as the backhoe that he used. But, he's trying to get in the ballpark. Because you know how water it's a main, not like a water main. Actually, it kind of was a water main, not a huge one. But, it may be over there and the water percolates up right here. It's just really hard to pinpoint. Anyway, so if we have time, I may look at just the fact, is electroculture anyway related to the use of a dowsing rod? And the only reason I think that, the only reason I would even put that in maybe the same category, is that each device, the dowsing rod and then these antennas that they're using for the electroculture, are just that. It was some way for a person to tap into or receive or gather unforeseen, unseen forces to help you accomplish a task. One's, you're using a dowsing rod to try to use whatever mechanism they say that taps into to pinpoint water, or planting a copper antenna in your garden to see if you can gather, positive energies and make your garden grow better. But according to Gemini, about the only thing they have in common is they're a pseudoscience. They're not really scientific. You can't prove them. And I guess you can't prove, if you can't prove it, you can't disprove it in some way or form or fashion. So, all right, let's get this thing set up. We'll look at this and see what electroculture is. If backhoe can't find a leak, I can guarantee you it can make one. So, there you have it. It's kind of like a backhoe can create its own work. If you've got a backhoe, you can create some work with it. You try not to a lot of times, but it is sometimes an unforeseen product of poor backhoe operation, for sure. All right. Yeah. You must call before you dig. Okay, so I asked it lots of things. Let's get down here. That was the dowsing rod. Okay, so here's where the electroculture, let's see if I can get it to slide over here. The electroculture topic started. Okay? And I just asked it about the copper pipes because I knew that was what they were using. So it says that there is a belief that certain types of copper pipe arrangements placed in the ground can improve plant growth. This practice is often referred to as electroculture, or sometimes linked to atmospheric energy gardening. Here's a breakdown of the belief in the scientific perspective. So, proponents of electroculture suggest that by burying copper wires, rods, or creating specific copper structures, sometimes coiled, sometimes in a pyramid shape, you can harness natural atmospheric energy. All right? I see that. That's, the hopes of a lot of things, and I think that's part of the dowsing rod deal. The copper acts as an antenna, drawing in supple electrical energy from the atmosphere and channeling it into the soil. The energy is believed to energize the soil, enhance nutrient uptake, boost root development, and promote overall stronger, more vibrant plant growth. Some claim it leads to bigger harvests, stronger stems, and increased resilience to pests and disease. So it's an all-around cure thing for your garden. So right now, I asked my wife, why so many tomato plants? I mean, it's gone from, I'd like to have a little garden, to let me just grow a bunch of tomatoes everywhere in the yard. I mean, she's got them in buckets. She's got them in like a little, mulchy area there where there used to be some trees. She's got a fenced off, deer protected, above ground garden thing. Tomato plant and cucumbers. She's got some cucumbers, tomatoes, and cucumbers. I mean, I don't know. Anyway, the one out front, I don't think I've ever heard this before, but it makes sense. The deer ate the top off of it. It's one of her favorite style of tomatoes. I mean, it just ate off about 6-8 inches right off the top of the thing. Done at its growth. But here's where my original thought was going. I wish that this thing would kill bugs. On her tomato plants, she gets those big old, grub worm looking things. Tomato bugs, tomato worms, whatever. And yeah, before you can catch them, before you can find them, they're eating a bunch of leaves. So back to the electroculture, they believe it because the plants are supposedly more efficient in using nutrients and healthier, they need less chemicals. Some theories suggest it can create a more favorable environment for beneficial microorganisms in the soil. All right. So now we're getting down to if you energize the soil, maybe that makes it a little better soil by cause of what do they call them? Microorganisms. You can find many testimonies and anecdotal reports on social media and gardening forums about people experimenting with copper wires coiled around stakes, not snakes, stakes, buried in beds, or even wrapped around plant stems, claiming positive results. The scientific perspective. So here we go. Here comes the wet blanket. From a mainstream scientific viewpoint, not those side shoots, not those little tributaries that come in off the side, but the mainstream scientific viewpoint, the claims of electroculture are largely unsubstantiated and lack robust scientific evidence. Maybe they got a little bit, but it's not robust. So, copper as a micronutrient. It's true that copper is an essential micronutrient for plants. Plants need very small amounts of copper for crucial processes like photosynthesis, respiration, and enzyme activity. A deficiency can lead to poor growth, delaying flowering, and other issues. In case of diagnosed copper deficiencies in soil, adding copper, usually in soluble form like sulfate, not metallic pipes, can indeed improve plant health. So, I guess what they were saying in that little paragraph is copper's necessary in the soil, but don't think by shoving copper pipes into the ground that you're going to improve or increase the copper content of your soil. Sorry. That does. Maybe if you left it in there for 5 or 10 years, I don't know. Who knows what will happen over a long term. But for sure, short term, you stick it in there, it doesn't increase the copper quantity in your soil. The issue with burying metallic copper pipes or wires that is metallic copper is not readily available for plant uptake. Yep. It has to be absorbent copper. While very slow corrosion might release tiny amount of copper. That was my idea. So it's the same principle. Garthog says it's the same principles as those bracelets that people used to wear for humans. Now, was it golfers? Did they sell those things for golf? They put, you can buy elbow braces and knee braces, wrist braces, all those joint kind of things you can buy offline that have copper wire in them. Yep, I think that's the same kind of deal, but that's true science. And there used to be those, wasn't it magnetic bracelets and stuff that you'd wear, and it supposedly helped increase, blood flow or I don't know, something in your body. But they had they were like made of copper and had 2 magnets somewhere on them. But yeah, the same kind of thing, harnessing unseen energies, atmospheric energy, and electromagnetic fields. All right, the idea of copper harnessing atmospheric energy in a way that directly benefits plant growth beyond established biological and chemical principles is not supported by physics or biology. While plants do interact with natural electromagnetic fields, the mechanisms proposed by electroculture are not recognized by conventional science. claims of generating significant beneficial electromagnetic fields with simple copper arrangements are generally dismissed as pseudoscience. So, do you think somewhere there's a few $1 million grant that some lucky corporation dude, small businessman, has applied for and gotten to study the effects of, atmospheric energy and electromagnetic fields, captured by these copper pipes, antennas, and put into the soil? Do you think there has been? If not, I'm going to apply. Because surely even the government would realize after spending a couple of grant cycles doing this, nobody's going to be able to prove anything. But if they haven't, I'm your man, right? I can wrap some copper. I got some. When I built my house, I bought the wrong size copper for my ice maker to run to my refrigerator. So what, did I take it back? No, I didn't take it back. Why? Because I just didn't get around to it. I don't know. I didn't take it back. And we got the other kind. Did I use it all? No. Did I need the whole 300 foot? No. But it wasn't 300 feet. But you get my point. I've got some copper tubing laying around. Okay? I've got some old house wiring, buddy, that I tell you what I did one time, and I wished I had a picture of it, and this is kind of a side note. I had a big old piece of copper, multi-strand copper cable. I don't remember where I got it, but it was a pretty good piece, 18 inches long or so. And what I did with it was kind of cool. You strip off the covering, and you start pulling the pieces out. And I made like a copper tree. So no, it didn't have leaves. It wasn't that fancy. It was just like the bottom certain amount I used and pulled them out flat, kind of made a, legs. So that was the root system. And then it had the trunk, was still the spin. And then I would pull out and make a limb over this way and pull out another and make a limb over that way. And as I went up, you make them a little bit shorter by, snipping them off and stuff. And I made a copper tree, and it was really cool. And I gave it to my son. And what did he do with it? He gave it to some girl, hung things off the little limbs and stuff, and gave it to her as a present. Did I care? No. I hope she still has it. Probably not, but I hope she does. It was kind of fun to do. Anywho, back to this. I've got some copper. Had some copper. There's got to be money out there. Somebody has to have some money that they're willing to throw at this to prove or disprove something like cow burps or cow farts, methane gas contamination of the atmosphere. There's all kinds of crazy grant money things out there that surely somebody like myself, innovative, responsible, could tap into and get a little free money. Not free, help society, help the United States. Give me money and I will help the United States analyze this. Anecdotal evidence versus controlled studies. The positive results reported by some gardeners are often anecdotal. Funny. Without controlled experiments comparing plants with copper setups to identical plants without under the same conditions and measuring objective metrics, it's impossible to rule out other factors like improved gardening practices, favorable weather, or the placebo effect. Okay, the placebo effect, as I understand it, requires a certain level, not I know where the sun is kind of level of intelligence, but enough intelligence on the part of the subject, and in this case a plant, to understand I am receiving something that is potentially going to make a good or bad uh, thing happen for me. And the placebo effect is, oh, it's going to make me grow bigger and stronger, and therefore I, the plant, grow bigger and stronger because I believe that's the medicine or the thing that I'm getting. My point is, how can a plant be the victim or the subject of the placebo effect? It's got to know that, hey, yo, they're sticking these copper pipes in the ground next to me because they think potentially, it's going to make me grow bigger and stronger. But guess what? They're not copper, truly. They're painted aluminum or they're painted iron or, to make it look like copper. That's a placebo. The sugar pill, the pill that looks like a pill, but it's just some sugar, and some wax put together. I don't know. How can a plant be a victim or have a placebo effect? It doesn't have enough consciousness to realize that it's supposed to be doing something. So I think that's a bunch of BS crap there. Scientific studies that have attempted to validate electrocultural claims have generally not found significant or repeatable benefits. In summary, while copper is an essential nutrient for plants, the belief that simply burying copper pipes or wires in specific arrangements significantly enhances plant growth through electroculture is a belief not supported by current scientific understanding or rigorous evidence. Any perceived benefits are more likely due to other factors. There it is, or the placebo effect. Let me just ask Gemini, how can the placebo, is it effect or affect? Effect. That's another confusing thing. Effect and affect. I never understand or know which one. All right, I'll read you my question as soon as I formulate it. For the people that aren't watching the video, and the reason I say that is potentially this might end up being one of my podcasts, or put out there as a podcast. Apply to a study on plants when plant has no consciousness. Did Robert show up? Hey, there's Robert. You snuck in while I was trying to formulate my question. I bet you Robert has seen, or maybe Garth thought, maybe, all right. If Freddie is still here, he can answer too. Has anybody known anybody to use some type of copper tubing pipe design, not as a decorative ornament in your garden, but in a way it hoped to improve plant growth? I got 3 guys. This is probably the best study group there is. Does anybody know anybody that actually believes electroculture will help grow plants? All right. So while everybody's racking their brain and trying to type on their keyboards, so I asked Gemini about that question I've been harping on just a little bit. How can the placebo effect be applied to a study on plants when the plants have no consciousness? All right. Robert says no. He hasn't seen or know anybody that uses copper antennas to harness, uh, what do they call it? Electromagnetic energy, something like that, to make your plants grow better. So, like a lot of AI, and I say AI, it's probably not really AI. This thing, I don't even pay for it. I wouldn't even consider it a chat bot. It's kind of almost like I'm using it as a alternative to Google. Okay? Because I kind of like the way it puts everything back to you like it's a human talking to you instead of just reporting some of the, the hits and the links and all that kind of stuff. Just it's a presentation thing, like plating a chef's meal is supposed to be, a big part of the eating experience. But anyway, so like a lot of the AIs, it's kissing my butt to me, and it says you've hit on a really interesting and important point about the nature of the placebo effect. Brain. The core of the placebo effect, as it's understood in human medicine, relies on conscious expectation and belief. A patient believes a treatment will work, and that belief, independent of the active ingredients, can trigger physiological or psychological changes that lead to perceived or actual improvement. Since plants don't have consciousness, beliefs, or expectations in the human sense, you cannot apply the placebo effect directly to them in the same way. All right, so I know Robert's late to the ball game, but the whole premise of the electroculture is what we're talking about is something similar to that. I'm going to probably go out like on Google because I don't think these AI assistants or Google search AI searches really have a handle on uh, doing certain types of searches on the live internet. I know Grok 3 does not have, or maybe even 4 now, the free version doesn't have live access to the internet. They take the internet, scrunch it together, dump it down, and it picks from that internet dump. So it doesn't go out and actively search live internet feed. I don't think Gemini does either. But I'm going to look at, let's see. I'm going to ask it, can all right, I'm typing. Elect, T-R-O. uh, let's see. Better stage improved. Let's see if it'll generate me some pictures. I asked it to show me some true electroculture antennas. So it doesn't show me any pictures. Electro. I'm just going to say electroculture antennas. I'm going to show images. All right, so here are some of the ones. Robert talked about copper ornaments, and I asked Gemini to draw me basically, a copper electroculture thing, and it made it a circle, which I believe is just really more of decorative, but I used it because it looked good. Okay, so here's a picture of an electroculture. How to make an electroculture antenna for your garden. You see that one? It's 4 legs, spirals. All right. That one is a stick. Looks like with copper wire wound around it like a worm. Okay, now these I've seen. These are like steel cooling coils that you see. That one's very, very nice. Looks like an oriental fan. Okay, so here are some of the ones I've seen that come up on my Reddit feed or, social media feed. All right. Huge crops with aid of electricity. Uh, let's see. Can you see that one? Ooh. Here's your one that shows you how far to put it away from your tree and that kind of stuff. Now see, Robert, this I think is kind of I think it just depends on what the person buys it for is what you would call it. Is this ornamental, or is this a person thinking electroculture, this is a good way to gather electricity, you know, and put it into their plants? Or maybe both. It might be both. All right, that's interesting. Oh, that's cool. I could do a bunch of those. All right. You can't see that one, can you? Let me see. Let me slide up. Let's slide that one over. You can see that one. This one's like humongous. Uh, it makes it look humongous coils in a cornfield. That's a cool one. But that looks decorative, right? It could be both. Oh, here we go. Now we're getting into the space alien stuff here. All right. Ah, look at this one. This is like a patent kind of deal here. That's crazy. How to make electroculture antennas. That's a book. So basically what you could do is take a dowel rod, conduit, whatever, take some copper tubing, scroll it around there like a piggy tail, and then at the top, make the scroll bigger, and boom, you're in the electroculture business. Now we're getting into some real work here. But as you can tell, it doesn't, a lot of it seems to be coils. Why is it always coils? Now, let me say this, okay? Kind of poke fun at this, right? Because it's interesting and I don't think it works. So I'm going to poke fun at it. But I know in theory this type of stuff works. So let's jump over here to Gemini. Can electricity be captured off a power line with an antenna similar to the electroculture. So I have heard and known of people being charged with, I don't personally haven't known. In theory, okay, so in high tension lines, they can't contain all the electricity in the transmission line. There's that, fuzzy hum, all that stuff. People that live under or close to high tension, high voltage, extremely high voltage transmission lines know what I'm talking about or have ever been around them. In areas where those things are, people have been arrested for putting some type of copper antenna close. I don't know how close. I don't know if it's inches or feet, but sticking that up and actually gathering that energy that's, radiating around those transmission lines and stealing the power off those lines. So, in theory, Gemini says, in theory, yes, antennas can pick up electromagnetic energy from power lines. Power lines generate strong electromagnetic fields as they carry alternating current. These fields radiate outwards and a conductive antenna placed within these fields would have a small current induction in it. This is a fundamental principle of electromagnetism, that stuff, and how transformers work. All right, and I've talked about on the show before, when you do wireless charging in your phone, there's no electricity passed between the devices. A device that you set it on does this agitation, and it agitates a device in the phone that then creates the electricity inside your phone to charge the battery. And I know it's not exactly the same, but in principle what you're doing is you're lifting this antenna up. It's being agitated or, affected by the electromagnetic energy from the power lines and collects or generates electricity at that point. However, the idea that electroculture styled antenna could safely and practically capture usable electricity from power lines or significant power is highly problematic and generally false for several reasons. It misunderstood my question. But it says in theory, and I'm not saying that I have personally done it or know somebody done it, but I know people have been charged with tapping into and stealing by not direct contacting power lines, but using one of these capturing antennas to gather electricity and use it for their own purposes without paying for it. So, I will say that lends a little, in my mind, a little credibility to, right, being able to snatch electricity out of the air a little bit, put it into the ground, I don't know if it makes plants grow, but yeah, we all come back to Nikola Tesla's, and he's got his name in just about every little corner of anything that has to do with AC current, electromagnetic current, electromagnetic power, high voltage, low amperage, all that kind of stuff. He's the dude that everybody, name pops up. And like I said, right now it's called pseudoscience because it hasn't been proven to the point where it's common knowledge or commonly accepted as being true. But who knows? It may not be long before that bridge is crossed and everybody goes, oh yeah, and that's true. Why didn't people realize that 20 years ago that you could do XYZ with some copper buried in your ground and an antenna 10 feet above the ground collecting, electromagnetic pulses from the sun and, gathering them and funneling those into the soil and making 200-pound potatoes. So Is electroculture crazy? Could there be something to it? Is it just pretty to look at? Yeah. Copper, copper and brass. I don't know, something about it. I always liked the steampunk look. I always liked the steampunk look. Yeah. I wonder. I assume that is a true picture. And here's one of the things I find interesting. You know, pictures were very difficult, relatively difficult, very difficult to take when photography was, early on. You see all these ones where they were like cowboys, where they had the gunpowder, the flash powder in a tray, and he had an igniter in his hand, and he was under the cloak, and he had to ignite that and open the shutter at the same time for just that however long it took. I'll say split second, but that's not the case. It may have been, it may have been longer than that to get the full exposure for that picture. Could you imagine trying to take that picture of Tesla in that, you know, spaghetti mess of electricity jumping around, and you're trying to take that picture and get it to look good? It'd be hard. Yeah, I don't think they could have faked it back then. I mean, I don't know. Maybe, but it'd take a bigger brain than mine to figure out. See, some of these I think were just on these ideas here. See, that says 99.9% pure copper wire. It's got a little round loop, but you can't really see the round loop at the top, can you? Anyway. Maybe, yeah. Maybe one day, like I said, it'll be to the point where it's common knowledge about, electromagnetism, electro, how can I say that word tonight? Anyway, about energies flying through the air. I've done several shows on different types of energy, ley lines, places, lines in the earth where, this type of energy is supposed to be more concentrated, whether it's in the ground, above the ground, through the atmosphere. We accept the magnetic poles. We accept magnetism as, that. We accept, visible and invisible light spectrums, all these kind of things now as science that used to be 100 years ago, 150 years ago was, magic or, suspect, those kind of things. So who knows? These guys may be laughed at now. In 100 years, they may be, the ones that saw through the forest to pick out a tree. I don't know. But anyway, I appreciate you guys showing up and listening to me ramble on about, suspect energy sources. Which, why? Why do I always get attached to these? It's just so interesting. Everybody loves the story of the guy that can make a Volkswagen run on a cup of coffee 200 miles. Yeah, I exaggerate, but you know what I'm saying. You stick it to the man. Those are always the ones where it's like, you want the underdog to succeed. You want to be able to, that one person in their basement, touching two things together underwater, as a shark swims by, whatever the conditions might be, that then makes the next, microwave food cooker, or whatever it might be. The next Mr. Fusion, like from Back to the Future, where you can just throw garbage into it, shut it up, turn it on, and it makes nuclear power. Everybody wants to believe in that, just like everybody you want to believe in aliens, but you're afraid of them. It's like, ooh, I wish there were aliens, but I'd be so scared. Electric eels. So, yeah, I've heard I think I touched on it in one of my other shows. It was a Volkswagen rail buggy. He said he could make it running on water. And then he choked to death in a restaurant, and the last words he said was poison. They poisoned me. Can't remember his name. But he was one of those deals where, he fell off. He got supposedly wormed out by General Motors or one of these oil companies or whatever it was, and then they finally, him and his brother, this is the story I recall, him and his brother were meeting some investors in a restaurant. He went to the bathroom, he came back, he drank his water. 3 seconds later, he stands up, he grasps his throat, he stumbles out of the restaurant, he falls over, and his brother's there with him, and he says, they poisoned me, or poison something, and then he dies right there on the spot. And then when brother looks around, the two dudes are gone. But there's reports of a carburetor back in the 70s that could get you 80 miles to the gallon, and it was bought up and put in some big warehouse along with the holy grail and the Ark of the Covenant, and that's where it sits because they didn't want it to make 80 miles to the gallon. Big Oil bought it out, whatever. So everybody wants to believe in that, and I think those are the premises of what makes inventing things really fun, is because you want to be that one that that takes a common household item, like a pencil, and wow, that'd be a good shape for a rocket. What? And the next thing you know is like if I had fire coming out of there and it went up that way, oh, I need some fins on it. The next thing you know, you're shooting model rockets off in your basement, in the field behind your house, and you make millions of dollars by, taking an old, paper roll towel tube, putting some fins on it, shoving a motor on it, putting a dunce hat on its top, and flying it, with a parachute later. That's what everybody wants to do. But anyway, big oil rules, ATM sucks. Okay? What? Big oil rules, ATM sucks. What's ATM? Antimatter? Another method? I don't know what ATM stands for. But Robert, don't you want to be the guy that invents, like, at the moment? Oh, you young people. You young people and all your little abbreviations. Alpha, that's not an abbreviation. What are you think? I know what that is. Big oil rules at the moment. Well, yeah, it's got to. The whole world, like it or not, is a petroleum-based economy. And why? Because it's truly, the whole world is an energy-based economy. It's all based on energy. If you have more energy, you have a really good economy because you can do stuff with it. And right now, petroleum is, like it or not, the main source of energy. So that's why, they rule, because they have all the gold. They make all the rules. All right. So I appreciate everybody showing up. Let's name them. I see Rob. I see Garthov. Huh? I see Freddie. And I see me. So, we're all here. I appreciate you guys and gals. I don't know, maybe somebody's out there lingering around. Humans have a big old nuclear reactor. They are coming up with they're going to open up and make available these small modular reactors now. Everybody's kind of getting on board with that. They're going to fast track those little suckers. You wait and see. There's going to be one coming to a neighborhood near you soon. The sun, yeah, the sun's a really good source of energy. I just wish there was an easy way or a better way. Batteries are easy, don't get me wrong, but they're not very efficient in storing that energy for very long periods of time to be used later. Then you got to convert it to AC if you want to run your cooler or your refrigerator. Or, you just use the sun directly. You can get out there on a hot day and fry your eggs with a frying pan. So they say. I've never done it. I don't think it's getting hot enough around here. So everybody's got their own, according to Robert, everybody's got their own nuclear powered clothes dryer. Just get out there and take advantage of it. No more drying your clothes with that pesky old drum that goes around and around and around and around. Take advantage of the free nuclear powered dryer. A clothesline. Just hanging out there outside and let the old mother sun cook them dry. All right. Thanks, everybody. If you watched it this long, like, subscribe, leave me a comment. You know the other things. Tune in Thursdays, 9 o'clock from our regular shows. Watch them later on. They're all on YouTube. And some of them are podcasts. I don't do a very good job on those. I like podcasts, but I don't do a very good job of putting them out there. Anyway, all right. See you next time. Next Thursday, stop streaming. There we go.